Alright everyone, we start off today with the epic salt mine in the wake of yesterday's Supreme Court decision on gun rights, the Bruen case of course, while the senators, part of the GOP, have decided to sell the nation down the river on the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court actually upheld it, and it was 6-3. Good on Roberts, he made a good decision. It's a hit or miss as to whether he does. Having Clarence Thomas delivering the opinion on his own birthday, that was the icing on the cake. Keep in mind, by the way, it is likely that we will have another major decision today. They've added an extra day to the docket. It could indicate that they release all of the rest of the decisions, or maybe just minus Roe, today. They added the extra opinion day today for a reason. I think it's because they had just a few too many cases, so we'll probably get 5 tomorrow, which is what we've been getting each day generally, 5 decisions. I'm skeptical that Roe will be one of them, unless, again, their intent is to release all of them now, get rid of the opinion day next week, and just go on vacation early. They may do that, and of course, if the Roe decision comes down on a Friday afternoon, that's probably the worst time to do it. I think I would just save that one for Monday. Of course, here's the problem with the Roe decision. Before we get into this epic salt mine, I'll explain one thought here. If you release the other decisions and there's only one other opinion day, everyone will spend the weekend camping out in front of the Supreme Court and getting ready to riot and protest, because then they'll know exactly when Roe is going to be decided. So you have like 10,000 people in pink pussy hats out there. You'll have a spattering of Christians that show up to celebrate the impending decision, and there will probably be some fireworks, unfortunately, literally. Now, we'll go to happier news here with the epic salt mine. This is from Aaron McIntyre, who helpfully made a super thread here with images of some of the worst takes in the wake of the Bruen case. So of course, 6-3 decision upholding the right of people to concealed carry. Shall issue is now the law of the land in all 50 states. California and New York are already scrambling to try to figure out some other way to screw law-abiding gun owners. They're dovetailing it in with the Senate case. We'll see if any of their proposals pass muster. I have a feeling that it'll be an extension of places that are gun-free zones, especially from Newsom in California. Probably a rise in the cost of certification to concealed carry. They'll want to squeeze more money out of people. They'll use it as an excuse to get more tax revenue. Anyway, here's Keith Olbermann. He had the probably hottest take in the wake of the Bruen case. It has become necessary to dissolve the Supreme Court of the United States. The first step is for a state to, the court has now forced guns upon to ignore this ruling. Great, you're a court? Why and how do you think you can enforce your rulings? Well, I mean, the police can enforce it. If a state government is willfully violating the Constitution, they can get sued up the ass. By the way, I strongly support liberal states attempting to do this. And when 1 million people join a massive class action and cripple the government and take all the money, well, then they can buy more guns with it. It's funny. The last part here is effectively Jacksonian. Andrew Jackson once effectively ignored the Supreme Court. In fact, multiple presidents have. This would be state governments attempting to do so. Sounds a little bit insurrection-y now, doesn't it, Keith? Sounds a little bit Confederate-like. Know that the Democrats enjoy slavery and disarming people. Of course, gun control in the U.S. begins and ends with Crookshank, and that decision was championed by the Southern Dems and the Ku Klux Klan. It's funny. I doubt that Keith would ignore constitutional law. He wouldn't want to put himself at risk. He wants other people to do that instead and lose their political positions. Neil Katyal. Going to be very weird if Supreme Court ends a constitutional right to obtain an abortion next week, saying it should be left to the states to decide, right after it imposed a constitutional right to concealed carry of firearms, saying it can't be left to the states to decide. Slightly apples to oranges. You see, the right to abortion is construed as a right under the Constitution by a previous SCOTUS case, not a constitutional amendment at all. Second Amendment's a little bit different. It's a kind of apples to oranges. Yeah, they're both a fruit, but they're not the same species of fruit. There is a comparison to be made. I would also point out one thing that I talked about yesterday, and it's interesting because I don't see enough people who are pro-Second Amendment pointing this out. If this decision is going to cause mass death, Hochul in New York, of course, has a hot take. We'll get to that as well. Oh my God, people will die. Why didn't that already happen in the 45 states that already had either shall issue or constitutional carry? Almost half the states in the U.S. passed constitutional carry on their own. They didn't need a Supreme Court decision. Vermont always had constitutional carry for open and concealed, never had a permitting process. We enjoy a low gun crime rate, despite everyone in Vermont being armed to the teeth. Piers Morgan. Breaking. America's response to its recent mass shootings is to make it even easier for Americans to use guns. The Second Amendment is now being interpreted as a right to bear arms as part of an unregulated civilian militia. You're ignoring the part about the people can bear arms. They are the militia. They don't need to be regulated by the government. I keep trying to point this out. I was actually slightly miffed that the opinion didn't actually point this out. It appears that some of the Supreme Court justices, instead of identifying properly the civilian population of the age of majority that's not incarcerated or a lunatic as the militia, they're saying, no, the right of the people to bear arms is separate from the militia, which is the state guard. That is incorrect. There was no state guard at the time that the Second Amendment was concocted. It didn't exist. It's impossible for it to refer to soldiering. It's impossible for the militia to be construed in 1700s parlance, anyway, as being anything other than a civilian body with its own weapons that can muster if necessary. It's capable of forming units. That's it. That's the traditional term that militia means. Not military, militia. Otherwise, they would have used a different term. They would have said soldiers. The right of the soldiers to bear arms. The right of the regulars to bear arms. Marianne Williamson, our favorite hippie mom. People will die because of this. And to be very clear, they're not doing this to protect the Second Amendment. They're doing it to protect the primacy of property rights, which is why so many millions of dollars were spent getting them onto the court to begin with. Yeah, of course, a person has the right to bear arms and to defend their property with those arms. The fuck? What's the problem with that? I mean, she's an anti-capitalist, so that's, I guess, sort of the angle she's going with. David Weissman, the SCOTUS is a disgrace because God forbid we ask for proper cause requirements to own weapons. There were never any... he doesn't even understand what the case means. This is about carrying a weapon, not owning it. You can buy a weapon in any state. You don't need any particular permission other than a background check. The states can't say you can't own a gun. Some of them are trying to ban certain kinds of guns. That'll be a major future SCOTUS case, and I have a feeling it'll go pro-gun there too. The Second Amendment should be amended. I am sick of this bullshit. Go ahead. If you can get 2/3 of the states to agree to such a thing, you can amend the Constitution. Or is it 3/4? I can't remember. Good luck. Then there's David Rothschild. So the name tells a lot about what his opinion will be. Theory that Second Amendment guarantees the right of anyone without any training, license, or cause should be able to carry a concealed firearm into a crowded bar in New York City is absurd. You can already do that in Tallahassee. You can already do it in Burlington. They don't have people constantly shooting up bars. New York City is overrun with crime and has a lot of gun control. I think those two correlate. Tom Watson. New York will now pass wider gun restrictions, which will then take years to wind their way through the courts. Rinse and repeat. Batter the Republicans with it politically. That's how you resist the illegitimate SCOTUS. Well, citizens should just refuse to follow the state law if they attempt to do that. It's unconstitutional. They should ignore it. If the state attempts to retaliate, yeah, there'll be a court case. I have a feeling that in New York and California especially, this will happen. I predicted the other day, remember, right in the wake of the Bruen decision, that multiple states would immediately do this. Some of them will, Massachusetts might not. We'll see what Maryland does. They've been attempting to confiscate magazines and shit, so I'm not too hopeful about them either. And what was the other one? I can't remember. Governor Kathy Hochul, this is New York. It is outrageous that at a moment of national reckoning on gun violence, the Supreme Court has recklessly struck down a New York law that limits those who can concealed carry weapons. They struck it down because it's unconstitutional. Doesn't matter if it's pragmatic. If it was pragmatic, 45 states wouldn't have shall issue and constitutional carry. Stephanie Mickus, the Supreme Court seems obsessed with wanting people to carry things. Hidden weapons, fetuses they don't want. Maybe they should be managers at TGI Fridays or Applebee's. And may it please the court, if you choose Chili's, you get to bring out the fajita skillets. That one's actually funny, so it's a cut above, what you're getting from the rest of the rabble here. Nicole Sandler. To the rest of the world, a warning. Do not travel to the U.S. American streets are not safe. The Supreme Court just said anyone can carry a concealed gun anywhere, anytime. Don't spend your money here. Your life is at risk. The second you deplane, literally stay out of the U.S. This is the high crime mythology. The fact is that outside of a few dozen blighted urban areas, all of which, by the way, are run by the Democratic Party, gun crime in the United States is actually on par with most of Western Europe. You are not at risk in the United States unless you go to an idiot city. Well, stay out of the city. There's nothing to see there anyway. Everyone wants to be a tourist, and they always want to go to, like, the capital of some country and go to the shopping mall. Fuck, you can do that in your own country. Yeah, you shouldn't travel for that. That's bullshit. Go out in the middle of nowhere and see some nature. In a lot of the world, there's not much of it left, so... Ana Navarro Cardenas, how tone-deaf to America's very real gun violence epidemic can the majority in the Supreme Court be? This is a disgrace. As it was succinctly pointed out in the actual opinion itself, that doesn't matter as far as constitutional law. Your feelings do not matter. The Constitution is clear. By the way, when they make a decision like that and they side with, the left wing of politics, these people all of a sudden suck up to the Supreme Court and love it. Mary L. Trump, this is one of Trump's relatives who constantly gets invited on CNN to ramble about him and tell tall tales. I'm not sure how much more evidence we need, although we'll be getting more soon, that this Supreme Court is thoroughly corrupt and more justices must be added in order to counter the insanity of the Alito-Thomas majority. I think it's actually the Thomas-Kavanaugh majority for the most part. A lot of swing votes in there. By the way, even Kagan occasionally. just to be aware, some of the liberal justices have swung as well in the current docket. They aren't monolithic, believe it or not. Most people don't understand that. Yeah, you can add more justices if you can get Congress to do so. The problem is, of course, without ending the filibuster, you'd need a considerable number of Republicans to join. They may be kind of politically suicidal, the neocons. Look at Cornyn and Romney, of course. I don't think that they're that far out to lunch. I think they know that that would cause backlash of a significant manner. Jennifer, I stand with Ukraine, Rubin. She has some really, really goofy takes. Thomas declares the Second and 14th Amendments protect an individual's right to carry a handgun for self-defense outside the home. There is zero textual support for that. Example 9999, why originalism is a scam. Well, to bear arms, one must be able to bear arms. The militia cannot muster if it cannot leave its property. That would make sense. We would look at the founders who carried guns pretty much everywhere they went. It was very, very common then. It remained extremely common pretty much all the way through. In fact, there's never been a historical period in which a large portion of the population has not continuously carried firearms. The problem is that this is an urban argument that's being made. You're making the argument from the position of New York City or Los Angeles. That's not the way most of the country lives. Much of the country is either rural or it is small town or it is suburban. It's completely different from the inner city. What is conceived of as pragmatic in the inner city? Well, people are going to kill each other. There's no animals there to attack you. You don't have grizzly bears in New York City. So you wouldn't understand why it would be necessary to be able to carry a firearm outside of your property. It is very, very common in most of the country. Again, 45 states already understood this basic constitutional premise. It's just 5 extremely far left states that were dragging their heels. New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts, and California. Literally the entire rest of the country, including a number of blue states, had already codified the concept. Many of them increasingly with constitutional carry. Kathy Hochul, I would like to point out to the Supreme Court justices that the only weapons at that time were muskets. I'm prepared to go back to muskets. Does that include swivel guns and all of that stuff? Are you going to arm your security detail and the police with muskets? Yeah, I think that they would kill less people. They'd be less of a menace to New York City. Sawyer Hackett, thanks to the Supreme Court, you can carry a concealed gun in public without a permit. But if you get an abortion, you can be arrested and jailed without Miranda rights. Again, now they're even dragging Miranda in. To be clear, no, you have Miranda rights. The particular case involved kind of disagree. I do kind of take umbrage with the result there. I do believe they should have expanded Miranda. Just to be clear, we've got enough of a police state already. I do side with the liberals on that particular case. I wish that had been upheld as proper. You still read your Miranda rights if you are arrested. They're talking about as an informal non-interrogation, day-to-day interaction with a police officer who's just asking you questions. And you were stupid enough to talk to them without demanding an explanation as to whether you're being detained, you're suspected of a crime. Do you have a warrant? Do you have any pertinent reason to be talking with me? If they do, they have a warrant or something, well, answer their questions, I suppose. You have certain rights, and by the way, everyone already knows their right to remain silent. It's ubiquitous. If you put civics courses back in high schools, even those dumb kids will know what Miranda rights are because they'll actually learn about it. Whoops, you remove civics unless they want to take elective senior law. Chris Hayes, I'm sorry, but the idea that the Constitution requires universal concealed carry is plainly insane. I've seen people, commentators, these are supposedly rational individuals, although they often fall short here, claim that this mandates that you carry a gun. You'll be forced to have a firearm and carry it on you at all times. I don't know where the hell they're getting that from, but it's there. Preet Barara, SCOTUS read neither the room nor the Constitution correctly. You believe that you know more about the Constitution than multiple constitutional law scholars. David Hogg, so you know that this take will be funny. I don't know that he's relevant enough for people to even care it anymore. Not only does today's ruling endanger the American people, it also endangers the lives of the justices themselves. Unlike the justices, however, the American people do not have the privilege of Congress immediately acting to protect them. More security was denied the SCOTUS justices, David. And they can concealed carry, and so can you. You don't need armed guards outside of your house because you probably aren't going to have 1,000 Antifa members showing up to protest your existence like they will with the SCOTUS justices that have been doxxed. But you do have the right to carry a firearm to defend yourself. Well, no more problem. Gavin Newsom, a dark day in America. This is a dangerous decision from a court hell-bent on pushing a radical ideological agenda. Again, the same agenda that 45 states have already codified. And infringing on the right of states to protect our citizens from being gunned down in our streets, schools, and churches. Shameful. California has plenty of gun crime, dude. Look at San Francisco. I think there are more dangerous things at this point, like HIV-infected piles of shit lying all over the place. The public health crisis is definitely real if you go to the Bay Area. Glenn Kirshner, the Supreme Court seems determined to make America the most deadly, dangerous, and the most inhospitable place on earth. We're going to freedom ourselves to death. Please look at the crime rates in the 5 states that held out on concealed carry. Look, by the way, at the number of shootings, lawful or unlawful, that involve concealed carry at all, and you'll see something different again. The vast majority of Americans lived in places where they could already concealed carry at a whim. Yeah, of course, courts and schools and certain other places are off limits. If you're just walking down the street, yes, you have the right to carry a firearm. You could already open carry in most of these states. I think 3 of them had unrestricted open carry. What's the difference between I have a gun here and I have a gun in here in my shirt? There is no difference. The gangbanger that intends to use their weapon for a hostile purpose is already going to conceal it because the idea is to not get caught in the act. Anyway. There's a million more here. You can go through George Takei, of course. Fuck him. The Supreme Court has decided that the founders, who believed some people should be in slavery, also believe we should all live in terror. Interestingly enough, the slave debate was already raging. It almost prevented the Constitution from going through and the nation from forming in the get-go. You had an unfortunate compromise on the representation of slaves as people. And that was not necessarily the best day in the United States history. Some of them believed in abolition, actually, by that point. And also, they didn't live in terror of guns because they owned guns. Every single one of them. Virtually everyone back then would have owned some sort of firearm. They were military-grade weapons, by the way. A large number of people owned their own warships or their own groups of cannons and shit like that. They made their own ammo. They made their own powder. They made explosives. They made incendiary devices. They had weapons that were far more advanced than a black powder musket, by the way, but this has been lost on people. And then Pearl, I'll do this one last here, because this is now a long video. The latest Supreme Court decision on firearms neglects to say the one thing they actually meant to say. For whites only. That comes from Pearl Mutations. The irony is that if you look at the demographics of the states that now have concealed carry, this will actually enable people of color, a slightly bigoted term that liberals use, the NIMBY libs, they like to refer to people of a darker complexion as the help, that people like Elizabeth Warren and Clinton do that. It will disproportionately positively impact their ability to get firearms. By the way, I actually got blocked by Ron Perlman the other day, so yo little Ronnie, what the hell, man? That's about all. Peace out.